So today we're getting into the story of someone who basically looked at the most ancient rules of power and just decided they didn't apply to her.
Yeah.
We're talking about Hatshepsut, an Egyptian ruler from around 1507 BC, who didn't just inherit a throne, she claimed the full title of king.
It's just such an incredible story of political ambition. And what's fascinating right from the very start is how perfectly prepared she was for what she was about to do.
And she was born into the top family.
Oh, at the very top, the powerful 18th dynasty. She was the eldest daughter of the king, Thutmose I.
So in ancient Egypt, that means she's got a direct line to the gods. They claimed they were descended from the sun god Ra.
Exactly. She had the divine pedigree.
Yeah.
But you're right to ask about the practical side because ruling Egypt was, it was an immense job.
You couldn't just step into it.
Not at all. And really unusually for a royal daughter. She got the kind of top-tier education that was almost always just for the boys, for the princes. The temple priest taught her everything.
Government, strategy.
All of it. And critically, how to read and write.
And we're not talking about learning the ABCs here. We're talking about hieroglyphics.
Yes, which is a mind-bogglingly complex system. You have thousands of signs, some are sounds, some are whole ideas. It took years of study.
So by mastering that, she had the keys to the kingdom. Literally, all the laws, all the religious texts.
She did. This was her training for ultimate power. She was learning how the entire massive machine of the government actually worked.
So she's got the brains, the training, the bloodline. But then her father dies, and she has to follow the rules.
Right. And tradition was extremely rigid. To keep the royal bloodline pure, she had to marry her half-brother, Thutmose II.
This wasn't a romance then.
No, not at all. It was pure political necessity, a non-negotiable move to keep power within the dynasty. She becomes the great royal wife.
But she clearly wasn't just sitting back. She was learning.
She used that time so brilliantly. As queen, she was managing the palace, she was at all the big state ceremonies, and she was just watching.
Watching how the generals and officials dealt with the king.
Exactly. It was like an intensive internship in how to rule, how to handle all these powerful people with their own agendas. The records from that time already hint that she had a very strong personality.
They had a daughter, Neferer, but then the whole political situation just gets thrown into chaos.
It does. Thutmose II dies after a really short reign.
And that creates a crisis.
A huge one.
Yeah.
Because his heir, his son Thutmose III, is just a little kid. He's way too young to rule Egypt.
Oh, so who steps in?
Hatshepsut. She gets appointed regent.
And a regent is basically like a placeholder CEO, right? Someone who runs the company until the real owner is old enough to take over.
That's a perfect way to put it. She has the responsibility, but technically not the ultimate authority.
Initially.
Right, initially. She starts by the book. She takes control of the national treasury, all the money, and she makes sure the entire military is loyal to her. She was proving she could handle it.
But she didn't just stay in the background as a caretaker.
Not for long. Yeah. She quickly starts moving out of that temporary manager role. Her name, her image, they start showing up everywhere on official documents. She's showing the priests and the nobles that a woman could run the country just fine.
And she built up a lot of trust, I'd imagine.
She did. She kept the trade routes open, the money coming in, the borders safe. And as she did that, she started taking on power that went way beyond what a normal regent was supposed to have.
And this is where she makes her big move, the huge political gamble.
It is. She decides she's not satisfied with temporary power. She declares herself the official king, the Pharaoh of Egypt.
Not queen.
King. King. The full reigning monarch. This was a potential disaster. No woman had done this successfully. She was breaking centuries of tradition.
So how did she pull it off without a massive revolt?
With some of the most sophisticated political theater you can imagine. She couldn't rely on tradition, so she relied on the gods.
She basically created her own divine PR campaign.
She did. She had it carved into temple walls that her father, Thutmose I, had always wanted her to rule. But the real masterstroke was claiming her birth was miraculous.
Right, the story that the god Amun himself visited her mother to make sure she was born.
Yes. She was essentially saying, I'm not here by accident. The most powerful god in Egypt chose me.
Which makes it pretty hard to argue against her. It would be like arguing with God.
It's basically treason against the gods. And to complete the transformation, she had to look the part.
So she adopts all the symbols of a male pharaoh.
All of them. The double crown, the ceremonial robes.
And the famous false beard.
Exactly. The beard wasn't about fashion. It was a political uniform. It was a symbol that said, I am the office of Pharaoh. My gender is irrelevant. And somehow, She convinced all the powerful men in the country to back her.
So she has the top job. Most pharaohs at this point would be launching huge wars to expand the empire. What does Hatshepsut do?
She does the exact opposite. She makes a radical strategic pivot away from expensive wars. She favors diplomacy, stability, and above all, trade.
That became her whole brand, really. Peace and prosperity.
It did. And the absolute crowning achievement of this policy was the expedition to the land of Punt.
Okay, so tell us about the scale of this. This wasn't just a small trip.
No, this was a massive state-funded project. She sent a fleet of 5 large ships, custom-built for a long voyage, hundreds of miles down the Red Sea.
To Punt, which is somewhere like modern-day Somalia, maybe?
That's the best guess, yeah. It was a journey into the unknown, really.
And what they brought back was just legendary.
It really was. Huge amounts of gold, ivory, ebony, and the really valuable stuff, frankincense and myrrh.
Which were essential for all the temple rituals, so literally worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely. But here's the detail that shows you how she was thinking. They brought back living trees.
Living trees,
Yeah.
on a sea voyage.
Living cinnamon, frankincense, and myrrh trees. They brought them all the way back to Egypt to plant in her temple gardens. She was creating a sustainable domestic supply.
That's incredible long-term planning. She conquered markets, not armies.
Exactly. And all that new wealth poured into Egypt. It was a golden age for merchants and craftsmen.
So all this new money, it needs to go somewhere. And she needs to keep proving her divine right to rule. Is this where the huge building boom comes from?
Absolutely. She becomes one of the most prolific builders in all of Egyptian history. Hundreds of projects all across the kingdom.
And these weren't just vanity projects, were they?
No, they were smart economics. They provided steady jobs for tens of thousands of laborers and stonemasons, which keeps the population happy and loyal.
And her most famous project is that stunning temple, Deir el-Bahari.
It's a masterpiece. Built right into the cliffs near the Valley of the Kings. It has these 3 gorgeous terraces connected by huge ramps. It almost looks modern.
Surrounded by the gardens where she planted the trees from Punt.
It was a monument to her economic success and her connection to the gods, all in one.
But maybe the most mind-blowing engineering feat from her reign were those giant obelisks at the Temple of Karnak.
They are just breathtaking. These are giant stone pillars, obelisks, carved from a single piece of solid red granite from quarries hundreds of miles away.
Let's just talk about the scale of that for a second. How big are we talking?
The tallest was nearly 97 feet high. That's like an 8 or 9-story building, and it weighed over 300 tons.
And that's one piece of stone.
One single piece. Now, imagine trying to float that down the Nile on a barge with no modern cranes. The engineering involved is just staggering.
And there was a final touch to make them even more impressive.
Oh, yeah. The tips, the very tops of the obelisks, were covered in electrum.
Which is that natural mix of gold and silver.
Exactly. So when the sun would hit them, the tips would catch the light and blaze. The entire city of Thebes could see it. It was a giant, shining symbol of her connection to the sun god.
It's clear she focused on peace. But an empire that wealthy must have been a target. She had to have good security.
Oh, absolutely. She wasn't naive. She kept a powerful army. She sent forces south to Nubia to secure the gold mines and keep those trade routes safe.
But it was more about defense than conquest.
Precisely. The goal was to protect the borders and keep the interior of the country peaceful and productive for her builders and merchants.
You can't run an empire like this alone, though. She must have had a great team.
A crucial point. She built an inner circle of loyal, incredibly talented officials. And she chose them for their skill, not just because of their family names.
And the most famous of them all was Senenmut.
Senenmut, yes.
Yeah.
He was her closest advisor, her chief architect for all her great buildings, including Deir el-Bahari. He was even the personal tutor to her daughter.
So he was essential.
He was instrumental in making her vision a reality. Their partnership was key to her success as a female ruler in a man's world.
And holding this whole structure together was religion.
It was the cornerstone of everything. Because her claim to rule was based on divine birth, she had to constantly show her devotion. So she gave enormous amounts of wealth and land to the priests of Amun.
Which basically bought their loyalty.
It did more than that. It made them financially invested in her success. It became impossible to challenge her without challenging their own wealth and power.
So she made questioning her rule and act against the gods themselves.
She did. It was genius.
So after 22 years of this incredibly successful, peaceful, wealthy reign, how does it end?
Well, she dies around 1458 BC. Analysis of her mummy suggests it was maybe bone cancer or a skin condition.
Hmm.
What's amazing is that the handover of power to her stepson, Thutmose III, seems to have been completely peaceful.
Which is pretty rare.
Very rare. She left him a rich, stable, fully functioning kingdom.
But that peaceful transition didn't save her legacy. Years later, someone tried to literally erase her from history.
And that's the great mystery. After she was gone, someone ordered workers to go to all her monuments, pull down her statues, and painstakingly chisel her name and her face off of everything.
For a long time, everyone just assumed it was her stepson, Thutmose III, getting his revenge.
But newer research suggests it probably wasn't him, or at least it didn't happen right away. The erasure was likely a cold, calculated political move decades later
To do what?
to restore a clear, unbroken line of male succession. They wanted to remove the dangerous idea, the precedent, that a woman could rule as king. They were trying to rewrite history.
And for thousands of years, it worked. She was basically forgotten.
A ghost in the records. Until modern archaeologists started finding all these broken statues, piecing together her temple, and finally realized what she had accomplished.
They recognized her not just as a queen, but as one of the most successful and brilliant rulers in ancient history.
Hatshepsut really proved that a leader's skill and will can create a powerful, prosperous nation, no matter what traditions stand in the way.
And it makes you wonder, why was a 22-year reign of peace and prosperity seen as such a threat that future generations felt they had to literally chisel her out of existence? Something to think about. See you next time.